Everything I've shared with you in the video so far will be available in the next version of TraceMatcher that will be available to you probably in the first week of April 2016. But what I'm going to show you now is a great new feature called Syncro, and this is something we're still working on. We're still working on some of the integration pieces, but it's really exciting, and I thought I'd show you just how powerful this feature is. So you can imagine that you may have, let's just take the example of two traces. We have two traces just as we had in the previous example showing the matching. And we've got the match grid. So if we go back to TraceMatcher, we've got this information in the match grid. If we want to do the analysis of the data shown in this grid, we can open a copy of Wireshark with the client-side trace file loaded, and we can open up a copy of Wireshark with the server-side trace file loaded. And then we can move through the trace files and use the information in this grid to match the packets within those two trace files, so that we can see, what packets left the client and arrived at the server or didn't arrive at the server, and vice versa, server back to client. That's good, but it is quite manual. So what we did was we developed a way of actually connecting Wireshark to TraceMatcher. So let me show you how that will work. So I'm going to start from where the matching packets begin, which is in capture point 1, it's at frame 246. So I'm going to load up the first trace file. So that's that one. Let's go back to TraceMatcher, and I'm going to load up the second trace file. Okay, so now I have the two trace files open, and you can see that we're starting at the first match point, which is frame 246, matches frame 63 at the server side. Now here's the great thing with this new feature Syncro. As I step through the client trace, you can see on the server side it's stepping to the correct matched packet. Now the interesting thing here is that I send this first SYN packet. If we jump back to there, actually, I send this first SYN packet, it arrives at the server, and of course the server immediately responds with SYN-ACK. But because that takes time to cross the network back to the client has time to start to initiate the start of a few more TCP connections. And so on this side we see SYN, 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 and on the other side we see the interleaving SYN-ACKs. But as you can see, as I step through this, it's jumping to each of the SYNs in the server side, and when it gets to the first received SYN-ACK, it jumps back to 64 and says, okay, well, frame 261 actually matches frame 64. Now, it's a great party trick, but actually, as a productivity tool, if you ever have ever had to match packets from multiple points on a network, you'll realize just how powerful this is. In the past, I've exported the summary lines into Excel and then lined them up side by side in adjacent cells in an Excel spreadsheet, and then done a lot of copy and paste and shifting blocks of trace entries around trying to get them to line up. It takes ages. It's really slow. With this, I can do it with the click of a button. And I'm just showing two traces here. There's no reason why you couldn't have 5 traces. If you've got a screen that's wide enough, you could have 5 traces side by side, and you could be using TraceMatcher to step through all of them, or through any of them, and all of the traces will remain in sync. We find that pretty exciting. I hope you do too.